Catus Maximus here. This happens to be the 3/8 version, the DWMT 81097. But this is the DeWalt's 3/8 ratchet. They have these obviously in 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch. Comes with the tool sets, also sold individually. All these big power tool brands are heavy into hand tools. I was at I can't remember what store I was at, but they had a huge wall of all individual sockets. It was red, so I assumed they were Craftsman. No, they were Milwaukee. It's like Milwaukee has gone whole hog into making hand tools, and DeWalt's like trying to do the same thing. These power tool companies are now just trying to dominate all tools, power and hand. Kind of crazy. Anyway, I have a couple of the Milwaukee ratchets. I did a video about them a long time ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. But I haven't had the opportunity to grab the DeWalt and finally end up getting, this 3/8 quick release ratchet. When they warranty these, they just replace the whole unit. So they have the screws, they thread into the body of the ratchet. That's not really a design that's indicative of them selling you rebuild kits. They just replace the whole ratchet. Otherwise, rebuild kits, the screws thread into the bottom plate. That way, if the screws, the threaded holes strip out, you're replacing all the parts anyway. Besides that, it seems like a pretty heavy-duty ratchet. Kind of has these interesting little notches. I guess that's just to make it more distinct. I believe these are like 72 teeth or 90 teeth. Not exactly sure which, but it seems pretty well built. Not much anvil play. Really pretty tight. Not the tightest. I wouldn't say it's like brand new snap-on, or maybe even some of the Harbor Freight Icons have pretty tight anvils. But this thing is more than satisfying. This is a quick release. I don't know if they have non-quick release versions. I know the Milwaukee's are solid anvil. But it has a pretty strong spring. And at least on this one's made pretty well. On some quick releases, if you press on the ball, it will actually cause the button to retract due to basically a quality control issue. This doesn't seem to have that issue. And when you put it on, it locks it on and still releases the socket nice and easily. The switch has a decent amount of protrusion, a little bit of air gap there. I would have thought that they would have made it right flush against the surface of the ratchet. The reason I like it that way is just because if you drop it, it's less likely to break or damage the switch. When you have that little... Oh, I guess I actually had it. I guess it was just lifted up a little bit. Never mind. It is flush against the surface of the ratchet. I like that, even though it causes scrape marks over time on the ratchet. The big deal is it's supported by the body of the ratchet, so if it falls and lands on the switch, it's less likely for this to break. The switch is low profile, so you're not very likely to actually accidentally hit it working with the ratchet. Initially, I wasn't so fond of this quick release button because I also thought, it's pretty small. But their thoughts are the same way. It's a really low profile quick release button, so when you're using a ratchet, maybe you're using it like this, quickly getting a fastener off, or you're in some kind of situation where you have to hold the back of it, you're not accidentally releasing the socket. So I'm actually overall pretty happy about that. Once again, this is a 3/8, and they actually use a pretty small through hole for the quick release, which I also like because it just gives a little bit more material for the anvil square. Other than that, not a lot else to say about this ratchet. A couple little T9 Torx fasteners. We'll knock it apart. It's probably using one of those wedge type pawls, which is seems to have totally taken over almost all ratchet designs. Couple little fasteners. Those are tiny little fasteners. They do have Loctite blue on them. Pop that out. Get the bottom plate. Reasonably thick bottom plate for a 3/8 ratchet. There's a bit of light oil in there. And you're seeing what I'm seeing. I don't see any seals. The Milwaukee at least has some O-ring seals. What I do find interesting is there is a very large block right here. And then there's our wedge pawl. So that's how it works. It ratchets, and then when it locks up, it's just trying to draw the pawl into this declining wedge, and that's why this design works so well and has become so standardized. It's very strong. Pretty small pawl in there, and when you reverse it, it just sweeps the pawl to the other side. Other than that, I wish DeWalt would have put a seal. Now you can see, now if I wave my finger under there, yes, there's actually quite a big gap around the switch here. And the problem with having such a big gap where you can see my finger under through that gap is that means dirt and crud's gonna get in there. And the problem with dirt and crud on ratchets that have teeth that are this fine is it doesn't take a whole lot of debris and grit to get into those teeth to push the pawl away enough to cause it to start slipping. I've always been fond of more coarse tooth ratchets just because the teeth have a really thick and wide cross section. Here's an example, even though this is a 1/2 inch. Even though this is a much coarser tooth, you can see big, thick, deep teeth means that even if you have some little particles in there, you still have just plenty of surface area and you're not going to have issues with the ratchet slipping. When you have ultra fine teeth like this and big gaps that allow a bunch of crud into the ratchet, it doesn't take very many particles before it will just start skipping on you. Once it starts skipping, it starts wearing off the tops of the teeth and you clean it all out. It'll work for a while, but since the teeth have all been kind of worn, it's more likely to slip in the future. So the one disappointing aspect of this DeWalt, overall it seems just great, and I'm sure plenty of people have had just good luck. But if you're really getting this dirty, you're working on a lot of grimy stuff, junkyard duty, getting it muddy, then I'm sure there's going to be quite a few people who've had issues with these starting to slip. And in my opinion, that's why the Milwaukee is better than the DeWalt, because the Milwaukee at least has some seals to help reduce the grit from being able to get in there. I just can't believe there's that much of a gap around the switch. I mean, it's huge. I mean, oh my God, you can almost pass a freight train through there. Actually, yeah, maybe not something that big, but nonetheless, a little disappointed in that DeWalt. Should have known better, because you know that since that gap's right here, it's all the grit's going to get in right where the pawl is. Anyway, that's my review of the little DeWalt, or of the DeWalt quick release ratchets. Overall, they seem pretty decent. They just have too big of a gap around the switch, and I don't think they're going to really hold up in really dirty environments. Anyway, really appreciate everybody who watches my videos, even these long, over-warty ratchet videos. See you next time.